Because Batman's an early East Side crip.
Yeah, he's from the East Side. Yeah, I know Batman when he, but I knew him from seeing him and meeting him in Venice.
Kev Mac video, you know this is for sure. Kev Mac video, open your soul, represent your ghetto, baby.
So Philip already had been in the shit. Philip was older than me and Batman. So Philip, when I was running with Philip at 13 or 14, Philip and them 16 or 17 years of age. They're way older than myself. So I doubt if anybody, see, that's what I'm saying, that who influenced, that wasn't the model or the mindset of nobody was bigger than nobody, because you got a group of men that will pull the trigger, fight you at any drop of a dime. And it wasn't about no, they wouldn't even think, oh, you do this, little homie. That shit ain't happening, bro. That ain't how that shit went. I promise you.
Okay. So when we speak on Batman, for some reason, the steakhouse pops in my mind. Do you know anything about this steakhouse?
Yeah, I was at the steakhouse when they all used to work there. Him, Fox, and Fast Eddie used to run with my father. So when Fast Eddie even first had that shop before, after it was Norm's or something, we had been going up there when Batman and all of them was running it. Then they were also working the other one on 120th and Western. So Fast Eddie, before he caught the murders in Vegas and died in Vegas, Fast Eddie had been hiring guys coming out of prison to work there, particularly the women and the waitresses. Most of them were in halfway houses where back in them days, you could come and get a job there. In fact, after we threw, I'd send you a picture back in 1990 of when we having Money and Batman and all of us up there that we took at the steakhouse. So yeah, I was around when him and Chicano and all of them, Fox from Compton and all of them was working at Fast Eddie's, and then they started getting into the drug trade, and Fast Eddie started getting into shit and ended up catching the case out in Las Vegas to where he almost got the death penalty and ended up dying in prison.
What can you tell us about the Carolina West?
I got pictures from there. That's when we was Michael Concepcion. We all parking lot pimping back then. That's when they used to have the phones where you could call from one table to the other one. And once again, that was a spot for us as like juveniles. At that time, now it's 1977, 76, 77, 78, 79. We're starting to go to what you just called it?
Carolina West.
Carolina West. Mm-hmm. We're starting to go there, and we having money. We ain't gang banging now when we at the Carolina West. We're more into looking, for me, we looking for licks. We having a good time. We getting sharp, Michael Concepcion. They ain't getting into the dope game, the pimping, the pandering, the having money, the robberies. They breaking away now when we starting to go into the Carolina West area. Now we're going to where we starting to have money also, as opposed to gangbang.
But was the Carolina West like a half of a strip club and half of a club?
The front of it was a strip club, but we couldn't get in there. We couldn't go in there. They would put us out. It was very strict. There was a nude club in the front, dancing. They forget up and down Century Boulevard, all up and down there, that was the whole straw. Back in our era, 71, 72, 73, during the black exploitation era, that used to be a whole straw before they built the Forum. You had Comeback Charleston Blue, Shaft, Superfly. Look at the movies. They didn't deal with gang banging, Menace to Society. That come out later on in the 80s when they started making the games because it started being profitable. But look at what movies were being produced in the 70s. They wasn't talking about Crips and Blood. They were talking about pimping and horn and the best thing going, selling dope and all this. So during that era, we wasn't, we knew about cocaine and about robbing and all that, but we were too young. Cocaine was $60,000, $50,000 a key. They wasn't thinking about selling no dope back then. So during that era, when we was at the Carolina West, we starting to get into our player mode to where they starting to get into ether baits and starting to getting into doing jewelry store robbery, starting to getting into just having money. We not gang banging per se no more.
So when I bring up the Carolina West in that era, you immediately throw Mike Concepcion's name right in there. Who's Mike Concepcion, and tell us about this guy, if you can.
Well, Michael Concepcion, a lot of people, Tookie used to be married to his sister. Used to go with, that's his brother-in-law. But Michael Concepcion is a record mogul, amongst other things, a community influencer, an icon really from the community that opened the door for a lot of these guys, from Big U to Whack 100 to Suge. Nobody was in the game as far as from a street blood crip level than Michael Concepcion. And he formed Grand Jury Records after he got shot. He was a member of the West Side Crips. He once told me that him and Bonnie is one of his oldest friends. He's told me he had been going to school with her since the 3rd grade. So Mike made good, man, and he was one of the first to bring out an anti-violence film when it come to hip-hop with We All in the Same Gang. Right at the same time, KRS-One come about. And after Mike got paralyzed, shot and paralyzed, we used to still ride with him and still our boy carry him and everything. Mike started sitting in the parking lots, pimping, cracking girls, trying to get at girls and stuff. And this how, to me, the term always gets associated with Mike as far as parking lot pimping, because that's far as he could go was the parking lot, and he'd sit up in the parking lot. So Mike is a guy that come a long way from, he couldn't read or write. A lot of people didn't know that.
That's crazy.
That he couldn't read or write, to where he's a multi-millionaire in the music industry, as well as housing and property and things of this nature, giving out grants and so forth.
That's crazy, being one of the early Crip members, being illiterate and being able to maneuver in the shark-infested music industry with no background in music. How do you explain that?
Well, Mike always had what they call a gift of gab. You know, you can have common sense and you can have those that went to school to learn what they learned. Mike has always just been a guy that could talk eloquently, had a good head on his shoulder, and he was a good guy. So Mike knew the ropes and the pitfalls. He surrounded himself with the right people. He stayed focused. He got out the way, but he didn't let his conditions hold him down. I never seen him sit and feel sorry for himself. But the one thing I do know that hurt him, and he would give up everything, is to see his mother again. Numerous times we've spoken to where he said, "Hey Melvin, look at all this I got, but my mother didn't get to see it. I would give anything to get back to." Same way with me. We want to make amends for the things that we did to, in hindsight, embarrass our family, embarrassed us. You know, it's not a good feeling when you've done things to where in the long run you think you're only hurting yourself, but then you see your mother hurt, the crows coming in her eyes, the hurt in her pain, the thought of my son, I'm fit to die. I didn't get to be with my son 30, 40 years because of the streets. So you see a lot of hurt when you look at, I see a lot of hurt when I look at a lot of guys.
So moms didn't see Mike make that pivot from the street to legit businessman? What was Mike's big break that allowed him to make that pivot from parking lot pimping to executive boardrooms?
I don't know what his big break was. I think more so he created it. It wasn't like he stumbled up on something, because I've been around Mike when he's thought of a lot of ideas, from selling dope to pimping, and I'm gonna do this, and in this case, he said, Mel, don't get in no trouble, man. I got an idea where I think we can go into the hip hop game, man. I'm telling you, don't get in no trouble. And once again, I went and did a robbery. So he went and created that, and he created that. Then he met Jimmy Iovine, Teddy Riley, Russell Simmons, and they started giving him a chance. And he was a planner, not a plotter, as he tell me. I'm a planner, not a plotter. And he just, well, they took a liking to him, and he had ideas, and they were receptive to him, and he just invested his money well also.
What's the story behind him getting paralyzed? Where and when did this happen?
Well, I'll let him tell the story where, when it happened. That's for those to say. I know how it happened and when. I just let them speak on it because you hear so many different stories on it. But I know Mike got paralyzed in the mid 70s. Yes, sir. So he wasn't that old when he got paralyzed, and then his mother died right after that or right before that, all during the same time. And I know the hurt, because he had just got out not too long ago before that murder. He had when the four of them went for the murder with that Douglas Green. So Mike been in that wheelchair and paralyzed over, I would say, 2/3 of his life.
That's crazy. Can we speak on what neck of the woods Mike grew up in as a child?
Yeah, Mike, when I met Mike, he had a lot of family over in Nickerson Gardens and everything, but when I met Mike, Mike was staying right up Western close to Gardena, up in the hundreds, 115, 100, on the other side of Imperial, up in there.
Henry Clay.
Yeah, he saw all them that's up around. The Henry Clay was a farm system for the hundreds. That's where all of them went. That was the equivalent of a farm system. When you went to Henry Clay, you went to Woodworth or whatever, and then from there to Henry Clay, from Henry Clay to Washington. That's why it was so violent at Washington. We're coming from Horace Mann, where we going 10, 15, 20 blocks into a whole nother community where all these guys have grown up together. So that made going to Washington High for those that are just coming and had never been going up or messing around with Henry Clay, like Rayford and these guys. They didn't know them coming from Horace Mann like that. So it was quite a problem, and that's when you start having little interactions, frictions amongst each other.
So the area where Mike grew up at now, like on one side of Normandy is Raymond's, the other side is a set called Harvard Gangsters. Did Mike have a hand in anything over there, or that's something that came along later?
Well, Mike had a hand in the original Crips, but as far as the Harvard Gangsters, that come a little later. They wasn't around back then. I can't see Mike having a hand no more different than I would have a hand in other things that come later on in life. We did our era then and went from there. But we are the seeds that whatever set that they got on the west side, they forget west side Crips are the seed that sprouted whatever they got now. And people have to understand that, because we're at an age to where, say O'Neal Brown, his son could be fighting against my son. Now imagine if my son would say kill somebody and I don't grow up with their daddy and we don't put in work. See, y'all don't get that like that, because a lot of times you're not old enough to where you got people. Or when somebody get killed, and now it'll be my partner's grandchild. And then my partner call and say, hey, Melvin, somebody from A-Trade killed my grandchild. And this dude here know that I'm one of the founders of it, although that's guilt by association. That happens a lot in this game.
That's crazy.
Guilt by association.
You mentioned that Mike Concepcion and Bonnie Williams had a relationship going back to the third grade. And it just dawned on me when we interviewed Bonnie, she's actually originally from Watts. And Mike's originally out of one of those projects too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's safe to say that's where that relationship came from.
I don't know where the relation. I just know Mike told me personally he knew her at some elementary, and he said that's the longest one he knew. Then he also mentioned Jan Brewer. Him and him go back a long way ago, where he used to say, "Yeah, man, I have Jan Brewer around because he could catch the girls for me and stuff like that." Uh-huh.